So this is our arbor structure, and you can't see them because hops you cut back at the end of the year, but we had 7 hops plants that in their second year of production covered the entire arbor, and we harvested about 20 pounds of hops off of 7 plants, which was really awesome. The Kettle House brewed the Garden City Pale Ale, so we still have a 5-gallon keg of beer that we need to serve somewhere. This was the first area of the garden, so the garden area is 2 years old now. The first year we only had this lower area. This space was still grass and hedges. There were a couple of crabapple trees that weren't very healthy. We could have kept them, but they went. The space down here, the raised beds again, all of the wood down here is reclaimed from the Stimson Mill. And the soil, someone had a question about where soil comes from, which we had a question about too when we were starting the garden. Luckily, the soil, there was a farmer that had excess soil out in Frenchtown and brought it over for us. So that's where our topsoil came from. But all of these beds down here, you can see we have a lot of vertical growing space, which is important when you're trying to maximize the amount of food that you're producing in a small area. Since this is so intensive, we might end up with 4 different guilds, I guess you could call them, each growing season in the beds. And so we have to add a lot of compost to keep it juicy, to keep the soil going.
I'm sure the cafeteria produces quite a bit of vegetable waste for you guys, though.
Yeah. We serve about 1,500 meals a day in the one cafeteria, and so that ends up being maximum, with back of the house waste, almost 3,000 pounds of food waste a week.
So where do you guys I mean, I don't see big composting bins anywhere at the moment. Where do you guys process
Peas
all
farm.
Peas farm.
So yeah, we don't have the physical space to compost on the level even that we need to right now. There's a space behind the greenhouse, and that's going to turn into our local composting spot. And then there's also a large composting site at the UC, which we're actually going to walk over to and see.
So you make the students separate their compost when they're done eating?
No.
Oh, you have them do
even
it when
meat
it trays.
goes into it, and napkins and everything. And
wow.
We can go inside, it gets pulped, and then because of city health code stuff and other concerns, it gets dehydrated. So it actually gets sanitized. And
really?
It's sterile. And so you can grow mushrooms in it.
Wow.
So the site in general, if you think about it, we have a lot of concrete, a lot of building space. These windows actually have a reflective film on them for the inside conditions, so that not so much heat's going inside, so it reflects the heat back into the garden. And then the cement area down there too has large-scale food service has a lot of grease waste, and you have to have somewhere to put it. So we have a large grease trap under there, which then also radiates heat up through that. And so this might even be verging on zone 6.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to see what kind of plants we can kind of push the edge of our zone, and see what we can come up with. This tree here, I'm not sure if we can make too much use of it other than physical climbing space. It's an Amur maple, and I'm pretty sure it's the only one in Missoula, so we didn't cut it down.
What kind of maple?
Amur? It's a Russian.
But it looks like here here's a form of layering. See, they have this branch going through the rooted pot, and this will written here, and then you'll cut it off and move it. Right? So
right.
There's a form of layering. That's a cool little technique there. What is that bush?
That might be the honeyberry.
Honeyberry. It looks like a honeysuckle. So okay.
And you can see, so the path that you guys are standing on, when we sheet mulched, that was the layer. So our sheet mulch is as thick as this bed is.
Wow.
And we did layers of manure, compost, coffee grounds, leaves, wood chips. Well, I guess there was cardboard before the wood chips, and then straw on the very top. And I agree now at this point, it would have been best to just leave it as wood chips. The straw tends to blow around a little bit more.
Yeah, it probably makes people uncomfortable to see manure on the surface, because then some people are like, ooh, the fastidious people say, ooh, must not be good.
When you're stepping through here, but this is our hotbed. And the way you construct these, if you look under,
you'll see that we have a bunch of stuff coming up too, a bunch of spinach.
Wow. Nice.
And arugula.
Have a composting greenhouse. They kind of pioneered that. And so the idea is that you actually compost with inside of the greenhouse. In addition to the thermal mass for heating, you're then proactively heating with the decomposition of those materials. So this floor space here will actually be a big vermicompost chamber. We've got a lot of red wiggler worms. Food waste from the cafeteria will go right into it. Boards will be going across it, and it'll be in panels so you can lift it up. And then raised beds will be made on each side of the main middle path. And those will also be composting beds. So these panels on the bottom open up so that you can then just scoop in and out from the sides. And you can go right down the middle with your wheelbarrow scooping either in or out, and then get everything out of the sides. Yeah, this is Solex. And then we were talking about doing then another layer of Solex on this inside part, and then you have that additional 4 to 5 inches of air cavity.
Well, you could always consider using greenhouse plastic instead,
That's
and then
true.
using some sort of way of being able to
Cheaper.
roll it up, you know, so you can like get an airflow going through it if it starts, you know, getting condensation inside of it.
Right.
Because isn't the real issue, I mean, this is about R2, it actually traps air in those, but the issue was protecting your wood from
that was the issue.
humidification.
Well, if you open those windows, aren't they? Which have a bad out, that'll dry it out.
Right.
Even if you put the other side in, because they're all going to come through those panels and be able to escape.
That's true. And then I guess we'd have to cut holes for these top vents too.
Yeah.
But you could do it that way.
Yeah.
You could just cut holes for those.
But so you wouldn't have to worry.
We'll be growing the starts for this garden, the UC garden, or some of the starts, and then we'll be doing microgreens throughout the year too, and some leafy greens.
This will be this is obviously the first year it's in operation.
Right.
Finish this stuff.
Right. The goal is to have it finished and functional by Earth Week, which is April 22nd. So we're kind of skirting the. A lot of passive solar greenhouse will use barrels of water as thermal mass. We wanted to have something a little bit more productive coming out that's creating heat, and so we chose to do composting instead of water barrels.
Nice, huh? Impressive.
It works well for microgreens, but it's a particular type that you don't grow for the radish root. You grow for the radish seed pods, which are edible. So this is our dark cycle. This is where they germinate. You could keep growing in them. They wouldn't develop any green color or the nutrients, and so then it's about a week in the dark cycle, 5 days, and then it goes to the light cycle.